The stars looked different here at the edge of the dead zone. Commander Lee Hannah pressed her face against the cold metal of the viewing window and watched the strange darkness ahead. It wasn't black like normal space, it was something else. Something that made her stomach feel tight and her hands shake just a little. "Commander, all the computers are going crazy," said Park Min-ho from his seat at the navigation controls. The young officer's voice cracked slightly as he spoke. Red lights blinked all over his control panel like angry eyes. The ship, Starward, moved slowly through space, toward the forbidden area. For 300 years, no one had returned from this place. Every ship that went in simply disappeared. The Galactic Council had made it illegal to even try, but Earth Command had sent them anyway. They needed to know what was hiding in the darkness. Kim Sola looked up from her communication station. Her usually calm face showed worry. "Commander, the other alien crew members are getting scared. The Zephyrian pilot is shaking, and the Krogan engineer won't even look at the screens anymore." Hannah nodded slowly. She had noticed this too. Every non-human on her ship acted like they were approaching their own death. But the human crew members felt something completely different. Where the aliens felt terror, the humans felt curious, excited. "Even take us closer," Hannah ordered, but Commander Min-ho said, his hands hovering over the controls. "The regulations clearly state." "I know what the regulations say," Hannah interrupted. "But look at your instruments. Really look at them." Min-ho stared at his screens. The readings that had seemed random before suddenly showed a pattern. The energy waves weren't attacking their ship. They were welcoming it. Chief Engineer Choi Dae-ho called out from the engine room through the communication system. "Commander, you need to see this. The ship's power core is acting strange. It's not failing, it's getting stronger." Hannah felt a chill run down her spine, but not from fear. It was anticipation. Something was waiting for them in the dead zone. Something that knew they were coming. The ship crossed an invisible line in space, and everything changed. The lights dimmed for a moment, then came back brighter than before. The constant humming of the engines shifted to a different rhythm. It sounded almost like breathing. "We're inside the zone now," Sola whispered. Through the viewing window, space itself began to shimmer. It reminded Hannah of looking through water on a hot day. Shapes moved in the distance, too far away to see clearly, but definitely there. "Energy readings are off the charts," Dae-ho reported, "but the strange thing is, they're not random. The patterns, they match our brainwaves. All the human brainwaves on the ship." The alien crew members were now openly terrified. The pilot had curled up in a corner, making high-pitched sounds of distress. The Krogan engineer had locked himself in his quarters. But the humans on the ship felt more alive than ever. Min-ho turned to look at his commander. "The navigation system just came back online, but it's not showing us a way out. It's showing us a path deeper into the zone. As if something wants us to follow it," Sola added quietly. Hannah made her decision. Follow the path. The Starward moved deeper into the mysterious region. The shimmering in space grew stronger. Sometimes, Hannah thought she could see massive shapes moving just beyond her vision. They were huge, bigger than cities, but they moved with grace and purpose. "Commander," Dae-ho's voice came through the speakers again. "The ship's computer just accessed files I've never seen before. They're written in Korean, but they're about star maps and defensive positions. How did these get into our system?" Before Hannah could answer, the space around them exploded into light. Not harmful light, but something warm and welcoming. The massive shapes became clearer now. They were crystalline structures, beautiful and complex, floating in space like living diamonds. "Contact established," Sola said, her voice filled with wonder. "They're trying to communicate with us, in Korean," asked Min-ho. "In our minds," Sola replied. "They're speaking directly into our thoughts." Hannah felt a presence touch her consciousness. It was ancient and patient, like an old grandfather waiting for his grandchildren to visit. When it spoke, the words formed perfectly in her native language. "Welcome home, children of Earth. We have been waiting so very long for you to find us." The dead zone wasn't dead at all. It was sleeping, dreaming, waiting. And now that the humans had arrived, it was time to wake up. The crystalline beings pulsed with gentle light. And Hannah realized that everything she thought she knew about humanity's place in the universe was about to change forever. The Starward floated helplessly in the middle of the dead zone like a leaf on still water. All the engines had stopped working, but strangely, the air was still fresh and the lights still glowed. It was as if something invisible was taking care of them. "Commander Lee." Hannah watched through the main window as space around them began to change. What had looked empty before now sparkled with movement. Huge crystal shapes appeared out of nowhere, surrounding their small ship like gentle giants. "How many are there?" whispered Park Min-ho, counting the massive beings on his scanner. "Too many to count," replied Kim Sola, her voice full of amazement. "They're everywhere, but they're not threatening us. They're just ... watching." The crystals were beautiful beyond description. They looked like diamonds the size of mountains, but they moved like living creatures. Each one pulsed with soft light that changed colors slowly from blue to green to gold. Yoon Ji-woo, the ship's medical officer, stared at her instruments in confusion. This is impossible. My scanners say these beings are made of pure energy, but they have solid forms. And the energy signatures, they're similar to human brain patterns. The largest crystal moved closer to their ship. It was so big that it blocked out the stars behind it. When it spoke, its voice filled their minds like warm honey. Do not be afraid, children. We are the Veil Keepers. We have guarded this space since before your son was born. Security Chief Bae Sun-ho gripped his weapon, though he knew it would be useless against beings made of energy. What do you want with us? The crystal's light grew warmer. We want nothing from you. We are here to give you something. Something that belongs to you by right of birth. More crystals gathered around the ship, creating a circle of gentle light. Each one seemed to hum with a different musical tone, and together they created a song that made the humans feel peaceful and safe. Your species calls this place the Dead Zone, the largest being continued. But it has never been dead. We have been sleeping, waiting for the day when Earth's children would be ready to learn the truth. Chief Engineer Choi Dae-ho looked up from his control panel with wide eyes. Commander, something incredible is happening to our computer systems. They're accessing information that was never programmed into them. Star charts, weapon designs, communication protocols. All in Korean. That information was placed in your technology long ago, the Veil Keeper explained. Hidden until the time was right. Until you were ready to understand your true purpose. Pilot Lim Hyok shook his head in disbelief. True purpose. We're just explorers. Scientists and soldiers trying to understand the galaxy. The crystal beings pulsed with what might have been gentle laughter. You are so much more than that, young ones. Your species was not created by accident. Every step of human evolution, every drive to explore and expand, was carefully guided. Images began to fill the humans' minds. They saw Earth as it was millions of years ago, visited by beings of incredible power. They watched as something was planted deep in the genetic code of early humans, like seeds waiting for the right season. To grow, we were Earth's guardians then, the largest Veil Keeper said softly, but guardians grow old and tired. We needed successors. Beings with the strength and courage to protect not just one world, but an entire region of space. Medical Officer Yoon Ji-woo gasped, as she understood. You're saying humans were designed to be guardians. That's why we spread across the galaxy so quickly. Why we're so aggressive compared to other species. Aggression is the wrong word, the ancient being corrected. You have the instinct to protect, to fight when necessary, to never give up, even when facing impossible odds. These traits were gifts, not flaws. Commander Hannah felt a strange sensation, as if invisible hands were touching her mind, showing her things she had never imagined. She saw human colonies scattered across the galaxy, but now, she understood they weren't random settlements. They formed a pattern, a defensive network designed to protect something precious. What are we protecting? She asked. The answer came not in words, but in a vision that made all the humans gasp. Far beyond the edge of their galaxy, something dark and hungry was moving. It consumed everything in its path, leaving only empty space behind. The Devourers, the Veil Keeper said, and its voice carried the weight of ancient fear. They have slept for eons, but now they wake. They hunger for the energy of living worlds, and they are coming this way. The crystal beings moved closer to the ship, their light growing brighter. We cannot fight them alone anymore. We need fresh strength, new ideas, the fierce determination that only humans possess. Bae Sun-ho lowered his weapon completely. You want us to help you fight these We want you to lead the fight. The being replied, the time of the Veil Keepers is ending. The time of humanity's guardianship is about to begin. The humans looked at each other with mixture of fear and excitement. They had come to the Dead Zone as explorers. But they were about to leave as something entirely different. The ancient guardians of the galaxy had finally found their replacements. Commander Lee Hannah felt her mind being pulled away from her body. The largest Veil Keeper had touched her consciousness, and suddenly she was floating in a space filled with swirling lights and ancient memories. It was like being inside a living library where every book was made of pure thought. Do not resist. The crystal being whispered in her mind. You must see the truth about your species, about your world. Images flashed before her eyes faster than lightning, but somehow she understood each one perfectly. She saw Earth billions of years ago, when it was young and wild. Strange beings had visited the planet, not to conquer or destroy, but to plant something precious in the creatures that would one day become human. Back on the ship. Her crew watched nervously as their commander stood motionless, her eyes glowing with the same soft light as the crystal beings around them. What's happening to her? Asked pilot Lim Hyok, reaching toward Hannah, but stopping when Yoon Ji-woo grabbed his arm. Don't touch her, the medical officer warned, checking her instruments. Her brain activity is off the charts, but she's not in danger. She's learning something. In the vision space, Hannah watched human history unfold like a movie played at incredible speed. But this wasn't the history she had learned in school. This was the real story, the hidden truth behind humanity's rapid spread across the galaxy. She saw the first human settlements on other worlds, and noticed something that made her gasp. Every colony, every outpost, every trading station had been built in very specific locations. From space, they formed a pattern like a giant spiderweb stretching across multiple star systems. We weren't just exploring randomly, she whispered to herself. We were following some kind of plan. A plan written in your genetic code, the Veil Keeper confirmed. The same instincts that made your ancestors leave Africa to populate Earth also drove your species to spread among the stars. But it was not wanderlust, it was preparation. More images filled her mind. She saw human military bases positioned at strategic points throughout the galaxy, supply routes that seemed to follow ancient star maps, trade agreements that placed human merchants in exactly the right locations to create a communication network. Meanwhile, on the ship, Chief Engineer Choi Daeho was discovering something equally shocking. Commander Hannah can't hear me right now, but you all need to see this. He called to the others. Our ship's computer has accessed files that show every human colony in the galaxy. Look at this pattern. The crew gathered around his screen, which displayed a three-dimensional map of human settlements. The pattern was unmistakable. Every outpost was positioned to create overlapping fields of protection around something at the center. Earth, breathed Kim Sola. They're all protecting Earth. Not just Earth, said Tactical Officer Shin Nari, studying the defensive formations with her military training. Look at these positions. They're designed to protect entire sectors of space. It's like we've been building the galaxy's immune system without knowing it. In the vision, Hannah was learning the same truth. She watched as the Veil Keepers showed her the real reason behind human behavior that other species found confusing or frightening. Why are humans so aggressive? She had often heard aliens ask, why do they fight so much? Why can't they just be peaceful? Now she understood. Human aggression wasn't a flaw, it was a feature. The willingness to fight, to protect, to never surrender, even against impossible odds. These were the traits that made humans perfect guardians. Other species seek harmony and avoid conflict. The ancient being explained, this makes them wise, in times of peace, but helpless when true threats emerge. Humans are different. You run toward danger instead of away from it. Hannah saw visions of human soldiers throughout history, always standing between innocent people and those who would harm them. She saw firefighters running into burning buildings, doctors working in plague zones, parents sacrificing everything for their children. The protective instinct, she realized, it's not just about our own families or tribes. It's about everything we consider worth saving. Yes, the Veil Keeper agreed. And now that instinct must expand to include the entire galaxy. Back on the ship, the crew was making their own discoveries. Security Chief Bae Sunho had accessed military databases and found something incredible. Every human military installation has hidden weapon systems, he reported with amazement. Systems that our own engineers didn't install. They're built into the basic structure like they were always meant to be there. Same with our civilian colonies, added Daeho. Power generators that can produce 10 times more energy than needed. Communication arrays that can reach across the galaxy. Defensive shields that no one ever ordered. The truth was becoming clear. Humanity hadn't just spread across the galaxy by accident or ambition. They had been unconsciously preparing for something their conscious minds didn't understand. In the vision, Hannah felt the weight of this knowledge settling on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. She understood now why the Veil Keepers had been waiting. They needed successors who would be ready when the time came. The Devourers are returning, the ancient guardian said solemnly, and when they arrive, the galaxy will need protectors who won't run away, who won't surrender, who will fight until their last breath. Hannah opened her eyes and returned to her body, but she was no longer the same person who had entered the vision. She looked at her crew with new understanding. We have a choice to make, she said quietly, all of us, all of humanity. The burden of truth was heavy, but humans had always been good at carrying heavy loads. The alarms started screaming across the starward at exactly 14:32 ship time. Science. Officer Kong Doha jumped from his chair as every sensor on his control panel lit up red. Commander Hannah, something massive is coming, he shouted over the noise. Multiple contacts at the edge of the galaxy. The energy readings are ... impossible. Commander Hannah, still feeling strange after her vision with the Veil Keepers, rushed to look at his screens. What she saw made her blood turn cold. Dozens of dark shapes were moving between the stars, each one larger than a moon. How fast are they moving? She asked. Too fast, Doha replied, his hands shaking as he worked his controls. At this speed, they'll reach the outer colonies in less than a week. Around the ship, the crystal beings began to pulse with urgent light. Their peaceful humming changed to something that sounded like warning bells. The Devourers have awakened. The largest Veil Keeper spoke directly into their minds. They come early. We had hoped for more time to prepare you. Communications Officer, Kim Sola was receiving messages from across the galaxy. Commander, the Galactic Defense Force is mobilizing everything they have. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. They're calling it the largest military operation in galactic history. But even as she spoke, reports were coming in from the Outer Rim. The first devourer had reached a small mining system called Keller 7. Within minutes, the entire system was gone. Not destroyed, gone. Where 3 planets and a star had existed, there was now only empty space. They don't just kill, whispered Medical Officer Yuan Jiwoo, staring at the reports. They erase, they turn matter into energy and consume it completely. The Veilkeeper's light grew brighter with ancient fear. This is why we chose your species. Conventional weapons cannot harm them. They feed on the energy of explosions, grow stronger from attacks. Only through bonding with us can you access the power needed to stop them. Chief Engineer Choi Dae-ho suddenly looked up from his station, his eyes wide with surprise. Commander, I'm getting readings from human colonies across 3 sectors. Systems that were never installed are coming online. Power levels are increasing beyond anything we thought possible. The dormant systems, Hannah realized, they're activating automatically. Across the galaxy, on every human world, the same thing was happening. Military bases found their weapons, upgrading themselves. Civilian settlements discovered their power. Plants could generate incredible amounts of energy. Communication arrays reached out to connect with networks that had never existed before. On the agricultural world of New Seoul, farmers watched in amazement as their simple farming equipment transformed into something that looked like military hardware. On the trading station orbiting Busan Prime, merchants found their cargo ships had hidden weapon systems that powered up on their own. It's like the colonies are waking up, said Tactical Officer Shinari. Monitoring the reports, every human settlement is becoming a fortress. But the devourers were getting closer. Another system vanished. Then another. The alien fleets that tried to stop them were consumed, just like the planets they were trying to protect. The Altarian 7th Fleet just engaged the lead devourer, Sola reported. They're using their most powerful plasma cannons. Everyone waited for news of victory. Instead, they watched in horror as the devourer grew larger, feeding on the energy of the weapons fired at it. Conventional warfare is useless, the Veilkeeper said sadly. Your people must choose now. Accept the bonding, or watch the galaxy die. Hannah looked around at her crew. They were just ordinary people, a pilot, an engineer, a medic, a communications officer. But they were also human, and humans had never been ordinary. What happens if I bond with you? She asked the ancient guardian. You become the first guardian prime. Through you, every human in the galaxy will be connected to our power. But the process will change you. You will no longer be fully human, but something new. Security Chief Bae Sunho stepped forward. Commander, we've seen what happens when these things aren't stopped. If bonding with them is the only way, the choice must be yours alone, the Veilkeeper insisted. No one can be forced to become a guardian. Hannah closed her eyes and thought about Earths, about the billions of people who had no idea what was coming, about all the human colonies that had been unconsciously preparing for this moment for centuries. If I do this, she said quietly, will the others understand? Will humanity accept what we have to become? Look at your reports. The crystal being replied gently. Hannah opened her eyes and looked at the incoming data. Across the galaxy, humans were not panicking as the devourers approached. Instead, they were organizing, preparing, taking their positions in the defensive network they had built without knowing it. They're ready, she whispered, even without understanding why. They're ready. The devourers were only days away from the first major human colonies. The Galactic Defense Force was in full retreat. The fate of countless worlds hung in the balance. Commander, Hannah reached out and placed her hand on the neural interface crystal. Then let's wake up the Guardian Network, she said. The bonding process began, and across the galaxy, humanity's true purpose was about to be revealed. The moment Commander Lee Hannah touched the crystal, everything changed. Light exploded through her body, but it didn't hurt. Instead, it felt like coming home after a long journey. Her consciousness expanded beyond the small ship, beyond the dead zone, reaching out to touch every human settlement in the galaxy. On the mining world of New Inch, factory worker Jung Taeyeon felt a sudden warmth in his chest. He looked up from his equipment to see the industrial machines around him transforming. What had been simple mining tools now gleamed with advanced technology he had never seen before. What's happening? His coworker asked, but Taeyeon somehow knew the answer. We're becoming what we were meant to be, he said simply. Back on the starboard, Hannah's crew watched in amazement as their commander's eyes filled with starlight. Through the neural link, she could see the entire galaxy as if it were a living map. Every human colony appeared as a bright point of light, and they were all connecting to each other like a vast nervous system coming alive. The network is activating, she said, her voice carrying strange harmonics. Every human settlement, every outpost, every ship, were all part of the same defense system. Pilot Lim Hyok stared at his navigation screens. Commander, I'm seeing movement patterns I've never imagined. Our ships aren't just moving randomly anymore. They're positioning themselves like pieces on a game board. The Devourers had reached the Kepler system, home to 3 million human colonists. But instead of panic, the humans, they're moved with calm purpose. Their defensive platforms, which had seemed like simple communication arrays, revealed themselves as weapons of incredible power. The first Devourer entered the system, expecting easy prey. Instead, it met a focused beam of energy that didn't try to destroy it. The beam wrapped around the massive creature like invisible ropes, holding it in place. We're not trying to kill them, realized Medical Officer Yoon Ji-woo, watching the battle data. We're redirecting them. Through the neural network, Hannah could see the truth. The Devourers weren't evil. They were like cosmic storms, natural forces that consumed energy because that was their nature. But storms could be guided, channeled, used for good purposes. Look at Sector 7, called out Tactical Officer Shin Nari. The humans there are directing the Devourers toward the empty space between star systems. It was working. The massive creatures, finding their hunger satisfied by the energy the humans fed them, began to move away from populated worlds. But something even more amazing was happening in the empty regions where they were directed. Science Officer Kang Do-ha gasped as his instruments showed the impossible. The Devourers are creating new stars. Their energy, when properly channeled, is forming new solar systems. Across the galaxy, humans worked together with perfect coordination. They didn't need to talk to each other through the network. They could feel what needed to be done. A farmer on New Busan knew exactly when to activate his settlement's power grid. A trader in the Andromeda shipping lanes understood precisely where to position her cargo vessel. The alien species that had fled in terror now watched in amazement. The Zephyrian High Council sent a message to Earth. How is this possible? Your species is performing miracles. But for the humans, it didn't feel like miracles. It felt natural, like they were finally doing what they had always been meant to do. Chief Engineer Choi Dae-ho monitored the power flows throughout the network. Every human colony is working at perfect efficiency. It's like we're all part of one giant machine. Not a machine, Hannah corrected, her awareness spanning thousands of light years. A living system. We're the galaxy's immune response, activating when threats appear. The largest devourer, ancient and powerful, beyond measure, approached the core human worlds. But instead of meeting resistance, it found itself surrounded by gentle energy fields that welcomed it, guided it, showed it a better path. Security Chief Bae Sun-ho watched the tactical display with wonder. It's beautiful. We're not fighting them, we're teaching them to create instead of consume. Hours passed. Then, days. One by one, the Devourers were redirected to empty regions of space where their immense energies sparked new stellar formation. What had begun as an invasion became a cosmic gardening project, with humans as the gardeners and Devourers as the tools. When it was over, the galaxy had gained dozens of new star systems in regions that had been empty for billions of years. The threat was not destroyed but transformed into something beneficial. Representatives from every major alien civilization gathered at the edge of the dead zone, which was no longer forbidden but recognized as humanity's command center. The Galactic Council formally recognizes humanity as the guardian species, announced the Altarian ambassador. Your role as protectors of galactic civilization is now official. Commander Hannah, forever changed by her bond with the Veilkeepers, smiled at her crew. They were still human, but they were also something more, part of a network that spanned the stars, ready to activate whenever the galaxy needed protection. Set course for Earth, she ordered. It's time to tell our people what they've become. The Starward departed the Crystal Realm, leaving behind the ancient Veilkeepers who settled into peaceful retirement. Their long watch was over. The galaxy now had new guardians, young, strong, and ready for whatever challenges might come. Humanity had found its true purpose at last.